The Rumbling, the most devastating weapon humanity has ever faced. But did it have to go this far? Was it necessary to use it? And could the rumbling be prevented? In this video, we're going to see if the story could have gone differently. Can we prevent the rumbling? Spoiler alert, no, we can't. This was a fake intro because the truth is that the rumbling could never be stopped in our story. It shouldn't be admired, but it most definitely could not be prevented. We always feel like the characters shape the story with their decisions, but Attack on Titan is not a simple story about different choices. It is also a story that shows us the irrelevance of those choices, that no matter what we'll do, things will always remain the same. You can call it fate, destiny, or whatever you want. It is very noticeable in this story, and today you'll understand why. And that is the real topic of this video. Today I'm going to explain why the rumbling will always happen, and scientifically nothing could have changed it. And don't worry, although it is based on science, I will keep this video simple, straightforward, and as easy to understand as possible. In addition, I will also share an unpopular opinion that every one of you needs to hear. The philosophy of the rumbling and the real message from Isayama. I never addressed it directly, so today you will also hear my honest opinion about the Jin Arashi, better known in English as the rumbling. In the world of different possibilities, the rumbling may have not been created in the first place. Karl Fritz, the 145th monarch of Eldia and the first king inside the walls, was a very powerful man. People feared him because of his titan power and the promise to unleash his powerful weapon. But the fact is that Karl Fritz could have simply faked it and told them a lie. He never planned this power to be used, so he could have just lied to the world and told them there are titans inside the walls, while in reality he didn't need to create a single one. No one will actually try to test it, right? So what is the difference? And yes, he can create walls without titans, just look at the royal family cave. Also, Attack on Titan Before the Fall explores the idea that more of those places were created using Titan powers. So yeah, King Fritz could have easily faked it, and that way the weapon would have never existed. Yeah, but basically everything I just said is not relevant. The scenario I just presented could have never happened in our story, at least not in the timeline or the reality we have been following. And it will make sense soon. Now, don't get me wrong, it could fit perfectly with other types of anime that uses a different kind of perspective on time and space. For example, in the beautiful anime Erased, the protagonist can actually change his future by changing his past. That works perfectly for Erased because the universe of Erased is set in a certain way that makes sense. But in Attack on Titan, it doesn't fit because the story uses a different and also a more scientific perspective of space-time. It had been established a few times that the future can never be changed. Even Eren realized and mentioned it. That is how Isayama wanted you to look at the concept of time in his story, unlike great other stories that use a different way, like Erased we just mentioned. Now I could talk for hours about the physics behind Attack on Titan, and I have in many videos, especially this one. But today I'm not going to confuse you with complicated science. Today is just a shift in perspective. And for that you first need to understand one extremely important thing. Maybe the most important. These are not memories. Longtime friends on my channel have heard me say this phrase and explain the science behind it countless times, but this time we're going to tackle it from a different direction. These are not memories, they are fragments of time and space, each connecting or leading to that exact moment. It's not just moving images you watch, and as you can see, you can interact with them under certain conditions. That is because you're not inside some recorded memory, you are witnessing that event the moment it actually took place. If you're still having trouble picturing it, think about Harry Potter and the Room of Secrets. Remember that scene of Harry inside the memories of Tom Riddle? That scene was him inside a recorded memory. Like watching a movie, but not actually interacting with anything. In Attack on Titan, that is clearly not the case, and Isayama made sure to show this to us early on, when he introduced a very interesting side character. Frida Reiss. A fun fact about Frida. She was introduced to us in Attack on Titan Junior High, years before she appeared in the third season of the main show. She was a friendly ghost that scared the hell out of Historia, which was still Crystal Lands at that point. In our story, Frida was first introduced in the famous mirror scene. After Hanji runs test on Eren's Titan, he suddenly catches a glimpse of a mysterious girl brushing her hair. And again, in Junior High, they also met in a slightly funnier scene. But that scene was important for two main reasons. First, Eren questioned himself if this is a memory, which of course it is not. That brings me to the second reason, which is Frieda and Eren reacting to each other. Just like in the Harry Potter example, if it was a memory, it shouldn't be interactive, but here we can see both of them noticing each other. That is because, like I mentioned, these memories are more like fragments of time and space. They connect the user across time and space, like portals. Well, not exactly portals, but I will call them portals just for the sake of example. It happened to both of them at their respective present time. Only from Eren's perspective, she is in the past, and from her perspective, Eren is in the future. And of course, we viewers share Eren's perspective, so for us, she is also in the past. That was the first main clue from Isayama on how memories work in his story and what they really are. But I hope you can see how they are not actual memories, at least not in the sense we usually think of them. And if we understand Frieda saw future Eren in her present, which is the past for us, yes, confusing, but anyway, if you can understand the concept of Eren and Frieda seeing each other in their respective times, we can now start to understand why the rumbling can't be stopped. Unavoidable and unpreventable. Eren got a glimpse of Frieda in the past, but what is a glimpse of a future memory? Absolutely the same thing as a glimpse to a past memory. The only difference is your perspective. For Frieda, Eren is in the future, but her present is considered the past for him. The same thing is the case of a future memory. We understand now that those fragments of time are not just random images. They are actual events that someone had to witness with their own eyes for them to become memories. In our story, Eren got a glimpse of lots of memories during the medal ceremony. We also know he witnessed the events of the rumbling, as he later shared with Grisha, who was horrified by that. But Eren could only witness those events because a future version of him already witnessed them at some point in the future. There is so much fun science behind this, not to mention the deep philosophical debate, but I will just put it in the most simple words. Eren witnessed a future glimpse of the rumbling. It is not a picture, it is something someone witnessed. We established before that Attack on Titan uses a different take on time compared to shows like Erased. In our story, things don't change, and the future can't be changed. So, if the future can't be changed, and what you see is something someone else already witnessed at some point in time, that means that this event always meant to happen. Unchangeable, just like the past and just like the future, for the simple reason that it already happened to the person who witnessed it. And once it happened, it's part of someone's past. And you cannot change the past or something that already took place. Of course, that is a very simplistic example, and in reality and according to modern physics, the past, present and future are all happening at the same time. That's why you can't really change them. This is a claim by Albert Einstein that I talked about a lot in previous videos as well. And if you want an opposite example from the past, take a look at Eren Kruger and what he said about Armin and Mikasa. Kruger didn't know it at the time, but he was seeing Grisha or Eren's future memories. As we know, those memories played out exactly the same. That shows us that the course of time was set in this reality for a long time now. Just as Kruger's future memories were the actual events that went down in the future, the same logic applies to Eren when he witnessed memories from the future in the medal ceremony. All those events were always going to play out the same way, because this is how time works in Attack on Titan, and a future memory is simply an event someone already saw somewhere or sometime in the future. The philosophy of the rumbling. This part will have slight spoilers only to make my point, but if you want to avoid them completely, you should stop watching now. Okay, so let me just say it. Isayama never wanted you to see the rumbling just as a vengeful act of a single person. He did make Eren the executioner, and in that sense, he is exactly like Kiritsugu Hemiya from the Fate anime series. Like him, Eren is portrayed as Angra Mainyu, a destructive evil spirit that carries all the evil in the world. It doesn't mean that Eren was supposed to be evil. We can all agree that Eren doesn't hate all people in the world, as he clearly knows there are good people out there. He doesn't actually hate every single person on this planet. In a sense, what Eren hates is the concept of hate, and that's what he wanted to destroy. But realistically, and also like in the anime Fate, that proves to be impossible without killing an incredibly large amount of people. And even that still doesn't make hate completely go away. It just buys you some more peaceful time, just like the time Paradis had between the end of our story and the extra panels. Eren describes it in a very cold manner, more as killing the concept of hate and disregarding completely from the fact that we are talking about actual people. That is cold, but he still didn't have hate for a specific race, skin color, religious group, or specific location. He just wanted to reset everything. That's enough to show you that Isayama didn't intend to portray Eren as someone who hates everyone or someone specific, as he clearly feels horrible as time passes and he realizes what he's about to do. This act is not his revenge, as we later learn he himself is responsible for his mother's death. Avenging his mother was the passion that drove him in earlier seasons, but that was not the case for a long time now, and certainly not the cause for the rumbling. And to connect this to everything we talked about before, for Eren it was already certain he is going to kill all those people, simply because at that point he already understood that nothing they did changed anything as his future memories slowly started coming true. So what was Isayama's message? Isayama used the rumbling to raise a finger at our society. Yes, all of us. In his story, he portrayed humanity's punishment as a giant stampede. That punishment was delivered by Eren, yes, but it didn't start with Eren, and it didn't start with Karl Fritz. Hate was always present in this world, just as it is in our world. Isayama tried to show us a society that grew so hateful and toxic to the point it brought its own destruction. He even made sure to make us see people in Marley coming to understand that this is their own doing. In their own words, they admitted this is their fault for blindly hating the people of the island and spreading that hate to future generations. They understood that this was a punishment for humanity gone too dark, so obsessed with hate and fear it could no longer be contained. And if it wasn't Eren, then it would have been someone else in the future from the side the world hates, which is still Paradis. So arguably the idea of destruction was always about to come at some point, and later in the extra panels we saw hate didn't just vanish, and years later Paradis was attacked. And I can safely bet the cycle kept on going and never really stopped. To show you can't destroy hate completely, because in reality you only need a single person to spark a conflict. And even if the world was completely ruined, that would just mean conflicts would have appeared on the island, because people will always have different opinions, and some will eventually grow into long-lasting conflicts. The story showed us the obvious irony of using a horrific act in order to achieve something positive, like peace. As Armin said, to fight monsters we must become monsters ourselves, and that is unfortunately also the case here. So we can never stop hate completely, but we can slow it down, not fuel it with more hate. Take a deep look at yourself. Do you spread hate just because you've been told you should? Do you also hate someone with passion without really knowing that person, country, or whatever? You don't need to answer, this is a private question you ask yourself. Should I send more hate into the world and keep the cycle going, or should I stop so I could actually make a change? Thank you so much for watching, my Titan-loving friends, and I hope you enjoyed this video, which was very important for me to make. And I also hope I could make you think about things a bit differently. Please subscribe, like, and tell me your thoughts, and like always, don't forget to dedicate your hearts to humanity, inside and outside the walls.